Hello everyone, it's Mari here for Honeybee Stamps. I'm going to be making this little card that you can see here, and I'm going to be using the beautiful Fall Flourish cover plate. This just is going to create a really beautiful impression for my card front. I'm also going to use some of the dies from the Lovely Layers Farm Cart die set. This is a really large die set that has so many really cool dies. I'm going to be using the Lovely Layers Quails die as well. And I've die cut all of the different pieces for the quails now from a variety of different colors of cardstock, ranging from dark and light gray, black, and a brown tone. And the quail set actually does come with a card that shows you how to die cut them out, how they work together, and how they layer. Really makes it super easy. This is a very easy layering set that helps you to create these really adorable little quails that you can use on your projects. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my liquid adhesive and layer up these different pieces with the help from my tweezers from Honeybee Stamps as well. And I actually do end up doing some ink blending on these quails a little bit later, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, I did not hit record. But I'll talk about that a little bit when the ink blending is finished and you can see what they look like with that little bit of ink blending with the finished quail. So just working on adding all of these little detailed pieces here. You can see here I just die cut this piece with a little bit of a lighter color gray so that it shows up on that black. And you wouldn't actually even have to do any ink blending on these die cut pieces. They actually look really great with the colored cardstock, but I do just add a little bit of ink blending to add a little bit of dimension to the die cut pieces when they're all finished. You could also do the ink blending before you assemble the pieces so that it's already done, but just because I just thought that it was just as easy to do it when it was finished, that's why I did it in that order. So I'm just going to put together the little lower portion where the legs are for the little quail, and just using the lines on the die cut pieces to help me line this up. So that little quail is all finished, super cute. And I love how Honeybee has created these dies so that the two little quails can face each other if you want them to, if you're using both of the quails for your project. So again, here just using my liquid adhesive to go ahead and layer these together. You can see how the different colors of cardstock allow you to layer these so that the details for the quail show up when you layer these together. So I'm just layering that brown over top of that medium tone of gray there. And once I've got that done, I'll go ahead and add these layered pieces onto the base layer. Sometimes I like to pre-assemble the other parts other than the largest layer and then add those onto the largest layer at the end. So now I'm going to just go ahead and add all of the little details to this little female quail here, and just adding the little dot of glue there for the eye. I'll go ahead and use my craft tool here to help me get that in place, and just use my finger to pick up the excess glue. Putting the beak onto this one as well. The beak has been cut from black cardstock just so that it really shows up on that brown. And then of course I'll just go in and finish up the legs and the base portion of the quail and adhere those two sections of the bird together. So it does actually come together very quickly once you have the die cutting done. Very easy to assemble these adorable little quails. So there's a little bit of transition there, and I'm just going to show you how I did die cut out some straw from the Farm Cart layering set. I used these inks here to add some color to the straw. There's that embossed Fall Flourish cover plate piece, and I'm just going to go ahead and adhere that onto an A2 size white card base with some foam adhesive. I did die cut this Fall Flourish cover plate piece a little bit smaller with my Sweet Stacks rectangles, and just so that there's a little bit of a white margin around the edge of it. This is definitely a very clean and simple white, lots of white space type of card. I really like this look, and I do use this style a lot with my card making. I'm adding a little bit of liquid adhesive onto the back of the foam tape so that it will allow me to just wiggle this around a little bit when I'm placing it onto my card base, just to ensure that I get it as straight as I possibly can. Now, these are those little straw pieces from that farm cart set. I'm going to layer those up with, firstly, I'm going to lay that first layer down just with some liquid adhesive flat to the card. And then I'm going to add these next 2 layers with some tiny little pieces of foam adhesive, just to give them a little bit more dimension on the card base, or the card front, I should say. So once I've got that tiny little bit of foam on there, I'm going to go ahead and add these onto my project. And then I'm going to add one more little layer of that straw over to the left. And I'll just do this with liquid adhesive. And that's just going to be a grounding area for the quails to stand on the front of the card. So I'll just go ahead and layer that on. And that's just going to give that really nice dimensional straw look for that area of the project. So I'm just going to give that a good press to make sure that that liquid adhesive adheres. And now you can see those 2 little quails have been added, the ink has been added to them with the blending brushes. So it was just a combination of some brown ink and black soot. I think I used walnut stain and gathered twigs. I'll list the all of the Distress Oxide inks in the description box below that I used for ink blending onto these adorable little quails. Now I am going to pop them up on a little bit of foam adhesive. The quail on the right, I did use sort of a regular thickness of dimensional adhesive, and then the quail on the left, I used the thin dimensional adhesive squares just to make the quail on the right popped up a little bit more. Now I'm going to be using this adorable set. This is the Mini Messages Sweets stamp set. It coordinates nicely with the Mini Messages banner dies. And I love these tiny little stamps. They're just perfect for small sentiments on your projects. So I've got some black cardstock in my Mini Misty. I'm treating it with some anti-static powder because I am going to be embossing the sentiment using my clear embossing ink from Honeybee Stamps and some gold embossing powder. So I'm just going to ink up that stamp nicely and stamp that onto the black cardstock. I'll give it another little tap of ink just to make sure I have enough. Just gently pushing it onto the black cardstock. And now I'll go ahead and add that gold embossing powder over top. That's going to stick to that sticky ink. And now I'm just going to take my heat tool and melt that gold embossing powder. It's going to melt so nicely and leave a really pretty nice gold crisp sentiment. Now the coordinating Mini Messages banner dies, like I said, coordinate wonderfully with this set. So you can just see there's the perfect size of sentiment die for this sentiment. I'll die cut that out, and now that's ready to add to my card. I'm going to use a little bit of foam adhesive on the back of the strip, and that's just going to make that pop up and be a little bit more dimensional on that straw in that way. But there's just that perfect little spot for that little sentiment. I love the sentiment. I think it's super sweet, and I think it just goes so nicely with the pair of quails. I'm going to take my white Posca pen. You could use a gel pen for this as well. And I'm just going to add a little white reflection in each of the eyes of the quails just to bring their eyes a little bit more alive. And then I'm going to add a little bit of gold splatter on my project as well. And this is just going to add a little bit of sparkle and shine, which I really like on my cards. It's really subtle, but it's just going to add that little bit of gold, which coordinates nicely with the gold embossing powder on the sentiment. I'll remove those little pieces of white paper that I have protecting the faces of the quails and the sentiment, and my project's finished. I have linked up, friends, in the description box below to all of the different products that I've used. Thank you so much, friends, and have an amazing day. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.